So, the topic we choose, the receptive macro skills reading, week 16, 18.
Learning objectives. The student should be able to understand the purposes of reading, identify the reading strategies, differentiate silent reading from reading aloud, familiarize Goodale's reading skill ladder, and craft a learning plan in teaching and assessing reading.
Purpose of reading. Before actually beginning to read it, it is important to know the purpose of reading. That is why the reading is being done. Knowing the purpose greatly enhances the effectiveness of the reading. Also, knowledge of the purpose can help one adopt a style of reading best suited for the purpose. Some of the reasons why people usually read. First, pleasure and enjoyment. Second, practical application. Also, to obtain an overview. To locate specific information. To identify the central idea or theme. And lastly, to develop a detailed and critical understanding.
Now let's proceed to teaching reading. So we all know that reading is a very important in our life. So we encounter a great variety of written language day to day. Articles, stories, poems, announcements, letters, labels, signs, bills, recipes, schedules, questionnaires, cartoons. The list is endless. Literate adults easily recognize the distinctions of various types of text. Your lesson should begin with a pre-reading activity to introduce the topic and make sure students have enough vocabulary, grammar, and background information to understand the text. Reading. We need to be careful not to introduce a lot of a new vocabulary or grammar because we want our student to be able to respond to the content of the text and not expend too much effort analyzing the language. And if we don't want to explain all of the potentially new materials ahead of time, we can allow our learners to discuss the text with a partner and let them try to figure it out together with the help of a dictionary. After the reading activity, check comprehension and engage the learners or our learners with the text, soliciting their opinions and for their ideas orally or with a written task.
We need to consider the purpose, reading strategies, silent reading versus reading aloud. Why we need to consider purpose in designing your reading lessons. Your students need to understand ahead of time why they are reading the material you have to choose in. Also, we need to consider the reading strategies in designing our reading lessons. When we read, our minds do more than recognize words on the page. For faster and better comprehension, choose activities before and during your reading task that practice the following strategies. Redaction, guess from context, skimming, and scanning. Prediction. This is perhaps the most important strategy. Give your student hints by asking them questions about the cover, pictures, headlines, or format of the text to help them predict what they will help them when they read it. Guess from the context. Guide your student to look at the contextual information outside or within the context. Skimming. This will improve comprehension speed and is useful at the intermediate level and above. And scanning. This is another speed strategy to use with intermediate level and above. Student must look through the context quickly, searching for specific information. Silent reading versus reading aloud. Reading aloud and silent reading are really two separate skills. Reading aloud may be useful for reporting information or improving pronunciation, but reading lessons should focus on silent reading. When students read silently, they can vary their pace and concentrate on understanding more difficult portions of text. They will generally think more deeply about the content and greater comprehension when reading silently. Try extended silent reading or a short chapter or book for advanced students, and you may be surprised at how much your learners can absorb when they study the text uninterrupted at their own pace. When introducing extended text, work with materials at or slightly below your students' level. A long text filled with new vocabulary or complex grammar is too cumbersome to understand globally, and the student will get caught up in language details rather than comprehending the text as a whole.
Good day everyone, my name is Sunny and Molod, BSN 2 afternoon session. The topic that I chose to discuss is all about types of reading assessment. So number one is screening assessment. So screening assessment is a design as a first step in identifying children who may be at high risk for delayed development or academic failure and in need or further diagnosis of their need to special services for additional reading instruction. Number two is diagnostic. Diagnostic help teacher plans instruction by providing in-depth information about student skills and instructional needs. Number three is progress monitoring. Progress monitoring determines through frequent measurement if students are making adequate progress or need more intervention to achieve grade level reading outcomes. And number four is screening assessment. So screening assessment, for example, you need to, kailangan mong maglagay doon kung ano ang purpose mo at kung kailan mo siya igaganap at para kanino. For example, your purpose is to determine children who are likely to require additional instructional support. Then, when, for example, when, ang ilagay mo sa when is early in the academic year or when new student enters school. Then para kanino is you need to put is for all students, and that is the example of screening assessment. And the diagnostic assessment is just like screening assessment. You need to put what is your purpose and para saan siya, kung kailan siya igaganap at para kanino. For example, your purpose is to provide specific information on skills and strategy needs of individual students, and kung kailan mo siya igaganap, and ang ilalagay mo lang doon is following screening or the points during the year when students are not making adequate progress. Then para kanino, ang lagay mo doon is selected students as indicated by screening or progress monitoring measures or teacher judgment. And lastly is outcome assessment. The outcome assessment is provide a bottom line evaluation of the effectiveness of the reading program in relation to established performance level, and that is the types of reading assessment. So let's go to the Grace Goodell's reading skills ladder. So number one is basic sight words. So basic sight words are mostly adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, preposition, conjunction, and the most common verbs. For example, the, there, thus, and always. And that is the example of basic sight words. And number two is using phonetic analysis. So using phonetic analysis, the reader is able to blend the individual sounds in a given order to identifying and want not recognize instantly as a sight word. So number 3 is using structural analysis. Using structural analysis is a strategy that is used to facilitate proficient readers. For example, a student might encounter the word abnormal and not understand what it means. So number 4 is using contextual clues. Using contextual clues are hints that the author gives to help define a difficult or unusual word. For example, the team was elated because they just found out they placed in the semi-finals. Number 5 is vocabulary building. Vocabulary building is a process by which people acquire words. For example, playing vocabulary bingo using both familiar and unfamiliar words for the squares. Number 6 is finding the main idea. Main ideas are often found at the beginning of the paragraphs. Then number 7 is finding the supporting details. So finding the supporting details are specific pieces of information in a piece of writing that support the main idea or the topic sentence. For example, in instance, in addition, another, in fact, furthermore, moreover, therefore, and etc. Number 8 is entering meanings, drawing conclusion. Drawing conclusion refers to information that is implied or inferred. This means that the information writers often tell you more than they say directly. They give you hints or clues that helps you read between the lines. Using the clues to give you a deeper understanding of your reading is called inferring. So number 9 is classifying the organizing facts. This is separating information, regrouping them, and then deciding how to organize and use them. And lastly, number 10 is using parts of the book. Include the front matter, the body, and the back. And that's all. Thank you.
Number 11. Using the dictionary. Dictionaries can help you in your reading and writing and to improve your vocabulary. A dictionary can be used to look up the meaning of a word. You can also use a dictionary to check the spelling of a word. Dictionaries may also give other information about words, such as word type and word origin. Number 12. Using the encyclopedias and other reference books. A book or set of books giving information on many subjects or on many aspects of one subject and typically arranged alphabetically. Encyclopedias will give you introductory information to help you broaden or narrow your topic, while also providing keywords and terms needed to conduct further research. Number 13. Borrowing library books for research and enjoyment. It's the traditional way to get information for research as well for enjoyment. Nowadays, you can find a lot of information on the internet, but there is still a lot of information in books that is not available on the internet, at least not legally and for free. Such books can be found in libraries. Number 14. Starting your private library collection. A private library is a library that is privately owned. Private libraries are usually intended for the use of a small number of people or even a single person. Example of private libraries: one's own personal works, letters, diaries, photos, blogs, and other personal materials. 15. Exposure to reading from mass media. Mass media is any of the many forms of media that enable communication to the masses. Examples include television, radio, newspaper, social media platforms, and booklets. 16. Reading from the internet comprises searching, processing, and evaluating of information and regulating these processes when using internet as an information source. Example of reading from the internet is free ebooks or Wattpad and bookyards.